data is important, but you can have data sitting there collecting dust, doing nothing. Or you can have a data that sort of lives along with your construction project. That means trying to capture all the information along the project, starting from the inception stage, architect designing stage, planning, procurement, your construction process, and how the building performs when it's being occupied.
Kia ora, I'm Troy, here as Chief Executive, and welcome to Stirring the Pot. Thanks for connecting. If you're new, here's what you can expect. We're going to be talking the tough stuff, the things that keep us middle minds up at night. There are many challenges facing our industry, and equally many opinions on how we should tackle them. Stirring the Pot provides a facilitated forum to discuss and challenge these viewpoints.
So let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. Today we're having a kōrero with Xun Xu, who is the project lead for the theme of Data Connectivity and Standardisation in the Endeavour Funded and HERA-led Ngākopa Construction 4.0 research project.
Xun, can you tell us a bit about the role of data in Construction 4.0?
Yeah, well, Construction 4.0 is really trying to utilize the technologies that's been underpinned by this Industry 4.0 concept. So its idea is to see how we can go on this digital transformation of construction industry, really looking at delivering real-time decision-making capabilities and enhance productivity and flexibility and agility as well. So it's really a big move for the sector to going forward in this area. And so looking at how IoT can be used and even artificial intelligence can be used in enhancing the industry sector.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the research project, the Construction 4.0 research project, you're leading a theme which is focused on data connectivity standardization, and it's the overarching theme. Can you tell us a bit about that project that you're leading?
Yeah, the big topic area is in data connectivity standardization. So data clearly is right in the picture of Industry 4 and Construction 4.0. Then we talk about connectivity, and meaning connecting data. Standardization is interesting words, and people think standards tend to constrain people doing things, restricting people doing things. But I think when it comes to data, managing data, standardization is something you can't get away. Really, you need it to streamline the things and to just cut down the non-value-added activities. So, yes, data is important, but you can have data sitting there collecting dust, doing nothing, or you can have a data that sort of lives along with your construction project. And that means data will get updated and pick up new information. So the key question is, how do you actually gather all the data, and how do you make sure that you keep the data all up to date? A number of things such as where would you store the data? These days, typically we see data being kept in different locations. Even in the same company, they could sit on different computers, on different servers. And then how do you bring them together? And when you have data saved somewhere, you save in different formats. If they are different or they are sufficiently different, then you have a task of interpreting these different formats. That again is non-value added task for people. Really we're talking about the same data, but if you represent it in different ways, and clearly you need to try to understand.
Mm-hmm. Data connectivity sounds easy, but it seems to be one of the key inhibitors to BIM and also Construction 4.0 uptake. What are the key concepts used in data connectivity?
Well, really, so we're looking at perhaps some technologies and software tools to really facilitate data being connected and easily connected. We're looking at the concepts such as Common Data Environment, CDE. So we may allow data being stored in different locations, and after all these days, you have a construction project it's unlikely that a single company does everything. So you do have subcontractors and others doing the big projects. So really this common data environments will be able to connect different data sets from different places and even different companies for the purpose for whatever we want to do. So very important concept, and we also try to see whether we can describe things in a common terms. I mean, you could, describing one thing, one person in this way and others using other different terminologies. So this data dictionary is important concept that we really need to try to adhere to, so that when we talk about windows and walls, when we talk about properties of these attributes, we try to use the same terms, and so that will make things very easy. I mean, electronically, when you write programs, trying to interpret data in that way.
Yep. Yeah. I guess it's like the dictionary is like the translator too. Like if you're taking different languages and trying to work out what's common and what the common meaning is. So you mentioned CDE. What are some of the other acronyms that are pretty common, like AIM and PIM?
Yeah, AIM stands for Asset Information Models, and then PIM stands for Product Information Model. So asset is important, really, and if you look at construction sites, there's a huge amount of assets being used, and you need to manage that. And that also in some way will impact on the quality of industry, your construction projects. Project Information Model really is trying to capture all the information along the projects, starting from the inception stage, architect designing stage, then planning, procurement, then your construction process. Then even afterwards, you want to know how the building, performs when it's being occupied. So it's monitoring, which is another theme of our big project, of course, monitoring 4.0, and how do we keep track of these buildings. And it's important because you probably will go on to build another building. You want to learn from what you've done, and lessons learned, and also the good things you want to keep doing in the new projects. So yeah, both models are very important, and again, coming back to how do you put the data into these models, how to represent the data in the models. So that's another important aspect.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the importance of the data dictionaries. What about the importance of information containers and data templates?
Yes, information containers. I mean, you can have zillions of data for the whole project, but for one particular purpose, say we want to measure the environmental impact of the building in the construction stage or in the use stage. So for that purpose, you probably only need a subset of data. You don't need everything related to the building project. So that information container idea is really define a restricted scope with which you gather the data you need for the purpose you want to do, whether it's even costing exercise. You only need a subset of data to do that. And carbon footprints of the building, clearly you need another set of data. So that idea is really good. It's basically just defining a subset of the data you're of interest. And the other concept is data templates. So that's just a tool for you to just make sure that you describe everything in a more standardized way. So coming back to this key term, yes, some constraints in there, but we know when you follow certain format and structure, it will just make things so much easier later on, because we all know when you send some data to me, I know what I will expect. I know what the data is going to be represented. So we all are on the same page, and data requesters and data providers. So that means there's no ambiguity in this whole data transaction process.
Mm-hmm. What about industry foundation classes? What does that term mean and why is that important?
Yeah, it's a good question there. So we talk about different formats, and you describe a design. They can be described in different formats. So when you have multiple parties on a project, and when they're all using their own different design tools, you have different format to deal with. Well, if you think about how to share the data from different software tools that are of different formats, there are perhaps only two different ways. One is to write translators, if you like. Data format A and data format B, you just write translator. Well, that looks like a more direct way because you all need to know about these two different formats. Then you write translator. But if you have too many different formats, then you really have to, double up or even triple the efforts of writing these different tools. And also, the software systems these days, the vendors keep updating, upgrading their systems, and their data format changes over time. And then you have to update your translator. So that's one way, and it seems to have some really prolonged issues you have to come back and address. The other way is to say, look, can we all speak the same language? It's just like we talk in English, we can understand each other. If we start to talk in a different language, then we'll need to translate. When you have a translator, the issue is you just cannot 100% convey all the ideas, all the meanings from one language to the other. Same as design data, construction data. So this second approach is say, look, can we have some sort of common language that we all speak with to describe the data that we want to manage? Well, this IFC is one way, which is really a data format that describe the data using the same sort of syntax and semantics, and so that can go into software tools. And it's also makes things very easy if you can write programs, you know what data you're going to process. So there are international standards out there. You can actually do that, and in ideal worlds, if we can all follow the same standard formats, and there will be no issues, no misunderstanding. Sometimes it does happen when you go from one data format to the other.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about nuances and, in translation, not being able to fully understand the context and meaning. In terms of this particular project, we've got a focus too on incorporating Mātauranga Māori into Construction 4.0. In terms of Māori data sovereignty, what impact and how do we consider that in terms of data connectivity standardisation?
Yeah, this is really, really important aspect of the project, and it's also quite challenging. I think we're probably one of the few groups that actually started looking into this in this country. Indigenous communities do have the sovereignty over their asset, the land, the water, and everything else. But Māori in this country has its own unique way seeing their identity and heritage as well. Land and water, of course, they see a very sort of intrinsic and deep connection to this. Then if you look at construction projects, well, you need materials. The building will sit somewhere. So that location, the connection to the Māori lands and going, back to the long history that we have experienced in this country. I mean, so much in there that we need to, first of all, acknowledge, and then really looking how we can actually represent that cultural aspect of construction projects. So actually, there are certain principles that we need to follow. So these are the data sovereignty principles. So I'm just trying to explain maybe briefly these 6 different principles. Mm-hmm. There's rangatiratanga, which is authority. So that is sort of sitting at the top, really describing the connection, the real connection between the people, the people who live on the land, and the data that actually generated from the land and the water. There's a whakapapa, which is really emphasize the relationship between people and relationship between people and the asset, the land and the water. There's a whanakatanga, which is obligation. So this is really, we say, look, we have a long history. We also need to look down in the future. So we need to be responsible for our future generations in the way that we're dealing with data. And we're just really thinking about collectiveness, all we're looking at the same kind of set of benefits that they will mutually, and benefiting to each other. There's a manatikana, which is reciprocity. This is really looking at this as not only us, it's not only you, it's actually we need to really have this reciprocating beneficial relations to be observed. There's a kaitia, which is guardianship, which is the last one, and the sixth principle we're looking at, and really it is re-emphasized this, going back to this Tanga, this authority. So really saying that we have obligation to look after people and the land and everything around us. So I can only explain on the surface of that, and there's so much in that. We're still learning how to, understand all of these concepts and really making sure they are captured in the building model. Now, I want to come back to this moral data sovereignty issue there. I mean, yes, understanding that is one thing, is the priority, the first thing foremost. But once you understand it, how do you actually describe the data and how do you connect that data from the cultural perspective into your building model? So this metadata concept, this data about data, perhaps is one way to describe that there isn't a provision for describing that sort of data. So we just need to be more innovative and find the best way to capture that data and also represent it and also connect to the other building data that we've got, hence the term connectivity, data connectivity.
I think that's an exciting part of the project. And as you say, we're on a journey and getting support from the Mātauranga Māori theme and also from Naomi Manu from Oraki Group. But I think also, like you say, it is something that isn't often considered. And so bringing it into the project is bringing an exciting new way of thinking about things as well that we probably wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So what would Construction 4.0 look like if we didn't have data connectivity standardization?
Well, a project will still go, I guess. I mean, if you're looking at buildings constructed a few years ago, compared to these days, we already see a lot of technologies being used to really enhance data being connected and data being described in a more consistent way. And so there's minimum error happens and little or less waste generated because of misunderstanding or data missing or whatever. Well, it basically will affect efficiency and the productivity of a building project and the quality as well, of course. If you don't have a complete set of data you need at hand, you won't be able to make the right decision at the time.
Is there any work happening internationally around data connectivity, standardization, and Indigenous knowledge?
Well, we've done a bit of search around this topic. I think people in Canada, they've done some work in this area, in Hawaii, in the States as well. There's some studies around the South Pacific regions and Pacific Islands and communities, and some work done in the area. But we haven't really seen anybody who has done a good, thorough, systematic kind of research or completed a good project, with that topic in mind.
So there you go. Thanks for joining our conversation with Xun today. If you'd like to connect more with him, you'll find his details in the show notes. As we move forward into a future where data drives smarter construction, the connections we create today will define the resilience and innovation of tomorrow. How will you harness the power of data in your projects? Food for thought till we see you next time. So hit subscribe, and if you liked what you heard today, please like, review or share with any men and minds you know. Let's spread the word. Are you ready to shape the future of construction in Aotearoa? Then you don't want to miss our upcoming Construction 4.0 conference on Friday the 15th of November 2024. It's all about innovation, sustainability, and the cutting-edge technologies transforming the way we build. You can expect thought leaders and industry experts sharing how Construction 4.0 approaches can elevate your projects and push your business to new heights. This is your chance to engage with the latest in tech, design, and sustainable practices that are paving the way for our industry's future. To register, you'll find the details in the show notes.